再稍微等几分钟，好不好？5分钟左右。大家看这个热的话，喝点这个东西。起不来拿这个旁边谁给你传一下？再等我wait for 5 more。1分钟里头，大家前后回头看看，然后互相说一下自己是谁，好不好？好了，咱们这个大家现在非常热烈啊，可能祖宗刚才就开始连上了。待会儿那个，因为我们后边还有点吃的啊，还有点喝的，所以待会儿他讲完以后呢，就是如果大家有时间可以这个欢迎大家再继续在这边留一下，可以互相交流。因为今天星期六呢，这个楼把空调关了，所以我们尽量把窗户都做开着。要是热的话，这边反正冰箱里就是喝的，所以然后洗手间就要一出门后头啊，所以大家这个可以比较的随便一点。然后手机可能变成震动比较好一点，因为这儿有2个媒体的在录像，也在网上播，但是不是实况转播是吧？现在好。OK， 那我们现在就开始好吧？Today we have the honor of DBaron, who is a veteran of Mozilla. So somebody, I think Robin, whoever, I don't know. So I had a blog there, right? Then there's a response to my blog saying, well, the legendary DBaron. Actually, that's not accurate. It's the legendary DBaron. So whoever has been involved with Mozilla knows all about it. So I don't want to spend a lot of time except to say that you don't have you have a very uncommon story that you got involved with Mozilla when you were in college, right? And then stayed with Mozilla for the past some number of years. And this actually reminds me, just to diverge a little bit. So remind me, so when Java, so I was part of the Java group, right? So when we were doing Java in 1995, 1996, and one day James got me forwarded an email saying there's a guy who wanted to be our intern, right? So okay, so do you have a chance for this guy to be intern? I said, well, good. So which college is he studying at? Well, he's in high school. Well, I said, well, we never take interns from high school, right? So we wrote back to him saying, well, you're in high school, pretty good. When you get to college, then we will talk about the internship. And the guy wrote back saying, I can't wait. The Java revolution is happening. If I wait till I get to college, it's too late. So I want to be part of Java now. That's pretty good. So your story reminds me of that. Anyway, so David is in China for the week, so we are very pleased that he's taking time out on a Saturday to come here to talk to us. All yours.
Well, thanks. Thanks everybody for coming here on a Saturday to listen. So what I'm going. So I should say first that if you have any questions during the talk, feel free to interrupt me, because I will sometimes start talking about something that's obvious to me and nobody else knows what it is. So I'll probably do that at least a few times. And you should stop me and ask me to tell you what it is if I do. So what I want to talk about today are some of the web standards that are used in the layout of web pages and how they're implemented in Mozilla. So that's a pretty broad topic, and the way I'm narrowing it down is effectively I'm going to talk about the parts I know more about, and avoid trying to talk about things that I don't really know very much about. So I can sort of divide these into, divide the area that I'm going to talk about at all into three areas. Document formats, so things like HTML and Zool. Scripting, and then presentation, which is how a lot of this stuff appears on the screen. And the area I work in is actually mostly on the presentation aspect. So I'm probably going to talk a little bit more about presentational aspects than about these other areas. Although, actually, I'm going to talk a bit about document formats. But rather than spend too much time on what I'm going to talk about, I should just talk. So many of the web standards that are used in web pages, they didn't just appear. There are other things that predate them that a lot of the concepts in them are based on. So many of the standards used in web documents have some similarities to things that were used in earlier computer document formats that came before the web. Scripting languages on the web take a lot from the history of computer programming languages. Presentation of web pages is actually a little bit interesting because it takes a lot from the history of document presentation on paper and from the computer typesetting software that was intended to produce documents on paper. But it doesn't take as much from the prior history of user interface design, which maybe, this is sort of an issue that bothers me a bit, but that many web pages today are really more about user interface than about things that are like printed documents. And yet the web standards that we're using to build them are based more on printed documents. So just to digress a little bit into this point, the layout algorithms used to lay out traditional printed documents, going way back, you take one dimension as input and the other dimension as output. So here, the width is an input. You place text on a line until you fill up that width. Then you move on to the next line. And when you finish the text, then you have a height, and that's the output of the layout algorithm, essentially. So you see this over and over again. And speaking in China, I probably don't need to mention that it doesn't need to be width and height. It can be the other way around. You can have the height as input and width as output. I think these are Japanese. Maybe not. I don't remember. I can't read it. You can also do something you can take variations of that algorithm that are a little bit more complicated. Like you might split up the available space into two columns and then run the algorithm over again. And this works for some web pages. Like this is the HTML specification, and this looks a lot like the documents I was just showing you. You can even do things a little bit more complicated that are still basically like the document I was just showing you. But it maybe doesn't work so well for things that are really user interface. Although this is sort of an example where it maybe looks like a table of contents or a bibliography.